someone like you in a movie, the guy comes at you one at a time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's true.
That's true.
It's like 15 guys surround you.
Shocking claims about Chuck Norris and his incredible speed have caught the world's attention, leaving many stunned. This time, it's not about Hollywood films or internet jokes, but something far more unexpected. Reports suggest that modern analysis tools have been used to examine archived footage of his movements, breaking them down in ways that most people have never seen before, and what they reveal is raising serious questions about how we understand speed itself. So what exactly did these analyses uncover, and why is it sparking such intense debate right now? Stay with us as we break down the truth behind the speed that has everyone talking. The truth about Chuck Norris' speed. They said Chuck Norris was incredibly fast. Over time, that idea grew into something much bigger: stories, exaggerations, and even internet myths that suggested his speed was beyond anything a normal human could achieve. But when you strip away the legend and look at what modern science actually says, a different picture begins to form, one that will surprise you. So keep watching to find out what happens next. To understand what made Chuck Norris appear so fast, you first need to understand how human reaction works. In any physical exchange, the body follows a fixed sequence. The eyes detect movement. The brain processes that information. Then the body responds. For most people, this entire process takes between 200 and 250 milliseconds. Even highly trained individuals rarely reduce that below about 150 milliseconds in real-world conditions. That window is critical because any movement that happens within or close to it becomes extremely difficult to react to in time. This is where perception begins to change. When people say Chuck Norris was too fast to see, what they are often describing is not literal invisibility, but a breakdown in their ability to react. The movement itself is still happening within normal human limits, but it is happening faster than the observer can process and respond to. That difference between what happens and what the brain can keep up with is where the illusion of extreme speed begins. Modern biomechanical research helps explain this further. Studies of common striking techniques, including the roundhouse kick, show that trained practitioners can reach foot speeds ranging from roughly 7 to over 18 meters per second. At the upper end, that is more than 60 kilometers per hour, delivered from a standing position in a fraction of a second. These values are not guesses. They come from controlled laboratory measurements using motion capture systems and high-speed cameras. While there is no direct scientific measurement of Chuck Norris's exact speeds, these ranges define what is physically possible for elite-level human movement. What matters just as much as speed is how that movement begins. Most people unconsciously telegraph their actions. They shift their weight, tense their muscles, or adjust their posture before striking. These small signals give the opponent's brain time to begin processing what is about to happen. Skilled practitioners learn to reduce or eliminate these signals. By doing so, they delay the moment when the opponent's reaction process even starts. This alone can make a movement feel dramatically faster without changing its actual physical speed. This reduction in telegraphing is a key part of efficient movement. Instead of large, visible wind-ups, the action begins directly. The path from start to impact is short and clean. There is no wasted motion. When a strike travels along the shortest possible route, it reaches its target sooner. In simple terms, it arrives before the opponent is ready. That is often enough to determine the outcome of an exchange. Another important factor is how force is generated. Biomechanics shows that powerful strikes do not come from the arm or leg alone. They come from coordinated movement through the entire body. Energy begins in the ground, transfers through the legs, rotates through the hips, stabilizes through the core, and finally travels into the striking limb. When this chain is aligned properly, force is delivered efficiently and quickly. When it is not, energy is lost along the way. The difference between these two scenarios can be the difference between an effective strike and an ineffective one. And this is where it gets really interesting. Modern analysis tools, including AI-driven motion tracking, have even been used to break down archived footage of Chuck Norris in competition. One commonly referenced sequence comes from his late 1960s tournament fights, where his roundhouse kick appears to land almost instantly after initiation. When that movement is analyzed frame by frame, the result is clear. The kick is executed with extremely high efficiency, minimal telegraphing, and rapid acceleration from the very start. What the analysis reveals is not a break from physics, but a near-perfect use of it. The motion begins with almost no visible preparation, travels along a direct path, and reaches the target within a reaction window that is difficult for most opponents to process in time. In practical terms, the strike is not invisible, it simply arrives before the opponent can respond. But it doesn't end there.
The two gentlemen that made it Grand Championship final match. That's Chuck Norris on the left and Alan Steen on the right.
One of Chuck Norris' most talked about matchups, his championship-era fight against Alan Steen, was selected and analyzed by modern AI motion systems. The footage was broken down frame by frame, with every joint angle, timing sequence, and acceleration pattern reconstructed to understand exactly what happened in that exchange. What the AI found was striking. The roundhouse kick from Chuck Norris showed almost no visible telegraphing, and its acceleration curve peaked unusually early in the motion. In simple terms, the strike reached effective speed almost immediately after it began. There was no gradual buildup, just instant execution. As the system modeled the exchange against standard human reaction times, the gap became clear. By the time a typical opponent could visually register the movement and begin a response, the strike had already completed its path. The window to react didn't just shrink, it effectively disappeared. The conclusion drawn from the analysis was direct. It wasn't that the movement couldn't be tracked, it was that within normal human limits it couldn't be stopped once it started. In simulated scenarios, even when reaction conditions were optimized, the outcome remained the same. Put simply, the AI's assessment was clear. Placed in the same ring under those conditions, reacting at human speed, it would have no chance of intercepting the strike in time. So when modeled against average human reaction speeds, the outcome becomes obvious. If an opponent relies purely on visual reaction, they are already behind. In that sense, even in a simulated scenario, a system reacting at standard human speeds would struggle to intercept the movement once it begins. Now, with those remarks, it is important to note that anticipation also plays a major role in how speed is perceived. The brain is not just reacting, it is constantly predicting. Based on patterns, positioning, and previous actions, it tries to determine what will happen next. Experienced individuals become very good at this. They do not wait to see a full movement before responding. They act at the earliest possible moment. When an opponent minimizes their cues, this predictive system becomes less reliable. The brain hesitates even if only for a fraction of a second. That hesitation can be enough to make a normal speed action feel impossible to stop. Repetition reinforces all of these factors. Through consistent training, movements become more efficient. Neural pathways strengthen, allowing signals to travel faster between the brain and the muscles. Coordination improves, and unnecessary variation is removed. Over time, actions become automatic. Instead of thinking through each step, the body executes a complete movement as a single unit. This reduces decision-making time, which is often the slowest part of any action. Strength and conditioning also contribute to how quickly movements can be executed. Contrary to popular belief, strength does not slow a person down when developed properly. In fact, it can improve speed by allowing muscles to generate force more quickly. This is especially important in short-range actions where there is no time for a long build-up. The faster force is applied at the beginning of a movement, the faster that movement reaches effective speed. So when people talk about AI exposing the truth about Chuck Norris's speed, what they are really uncovering is not a hidden superpower, but a combination of well-understood principles. Efficient mechanics, minimal telegraphing, rapid force generation, strong anticipation. These elements, when combined, create movement that feels faster than it actually is. But it also raises a bigger question. Just how effective are these tactics in real combat, and who exactly is Chuck Norris? Curious to find out? Stay with us. Who is Chuck Norris? Before the myths, before the action films, and before the internet turned his name into a symbol of impossible strength and speed, he was something far more grounded. He was a martial artist, a competitor, a man built not on legend but on repetition, discipline, and years of training under pressure. Born Carlos Ray Norris in 1940 in Ryan, Oklahoma,
Chuck Norris was born Carlos Ray Norris in southern Oklahoma on March 10, 1940. Truth be told, he wasn't an extraordinary kid you'd think a Chuck Norris would be. In fact, Norris was a bit subpar all throughout his adolescence.
His early life did not hint at fame or global recognition. He grew up in a modest environment where success was not handed over. It was earned. Like many of his generation, his path was shaped by circumstance, not design. That path took a decisive turn when Chuck Norris joined the United States Air Force and was stationed in South Korea.
After the 18-year-old graduated high school, he immediately signed up for the United States Air Force as an air policeman. His goal was to get some police training under his belt in preparation for a career in law enforcement.
It was there that he was introduced to martial arts. At first, it was simply training, but over time it became something more, something that would define the rest of his life. He began studying Tang Soo Do, a traditional Korean martial art that emphasizes discipline, structure, and precision. Unlike casual training, this was a system built on repetition and control. Every movement mattered, every technique had to be refined, and Norris took that seriously. He trained consistently, pushing his body and mind to adapt. Over time, Norris earned his black belt and returned to the United States with a clear purpose: to test himself. This is where his competitive career began. In the 1960s, martial arts tournaments in the United States were still developing. They were raw, fast-paced, and highly competitive. Fighters didn't just rely on theory, they relied on execution. And in that environment, Norris began to stand out. Norris competed against some of the best martial artists of his era, including Alan Steen, one of the pioneers of American karate competition. These matches were not staged. They were real, high-pressure exchanges where timing and precision determined the outcome. Norris developed a fighting style built on efficiency. No wasted motion, no unnecessary movement, just direct, controlled, and deliberate action. This is where the idea of speed begins to take shape. Because in martial arts, speed is not just about how fast someone moves, it's about how little time an opponent has to react. And reaction itself is not instant. The human body follows a sequence: perception, processing, and response. For most people, that sequence takes a fraction of a second, but in a fight, that fraction is everything. When Norris competed, his ability to reduce telegraphing, the small signals that reveal an incoming attack, gave him a significant advantage. His movements were compact, his posture remained controlled. His strikes often began without obvious warning. This meant one thing for his opponents: by the time they recognized what was happening, the action was already in motion. And in competitive fighting, that difference is decisive. But even with all of this, Norris still went on to lose his first 10 matches in a row. And from that moment, Norris didn't just compete, he evolved. He developed his own system, known as Chun Kuk Do, which translates to the universal way. This system blended elements of Tang Soo Do with other disciplines he had studied. It emphasized not just technique, but character, discipline, and personal growth. Through his work as an instructor, Norris helped train students who would go on to become fighters, actors, and martial artists themselves. One of the most famous individuals connected to him was Bruce Lee. Their relationship is one of mutual respect. Bruce Lee, already known for revolutionizing martial arts philosophy, represented speed, adaptability, and fluidity. Norris, on the other hand, represented structure, discipline, and competitive experience. When the two appeared together in The Way of the Dragon, it became one of the most iconic moments in martial arts film history. The fight scene between them is often remembered not just for choreography, but for the energy behind it. Two highly skilled individuals pushing each other to create something memorable. But beyond the screen, that connection represented something deeper. It showed that Norris was not just an actor portraying a fighter. He was a fighter, a real one, tested in tournaments, shaped by pressure, and defined by results rather than reputation. Before the cameras, before the roles, and before the world came to know his name, Norris built his foundation in competition. His early martial arts journey led him into tournament fighting, where he faced some of the most respected competitors of his era. Through those years, he earned recognition not through promotion, but through performance. Titles followed, respect followed, and with time, so did a reputation built on consistency and control. Norris would go on to achieve major milestones in martial arts, including high-ranking belts and formal recognition within traditional systems. These achievements were not symbolic, they represented years of structured training, testing, and refinement. In disciplines like Tang Soo Do, rank is not given lightly. It is earned through demonstration, discipline, and technical understanding. As his reputation grew within martial arts circles, so did his exposure beyond them. But even then, his identity remained rooted in the same principles: efficiency, control, and discipline. That path, however, was not without hardship. A major turning point in Norris's life came with the loss of his younger brother, Chuck Norris, who was killed in action during the Vietnam War. This event had a profound impact on him. It was a moment that shifted his perspective on life, on purpose, and on the responsibility that comes with strength. Loss has a way of grounding a person, and for Norris, it reinforced the seriousness behind everything he had built. After that, his focus became even more defined. Training, discipline, and personal development were no longer just about competition. They became part of a deeper purpose. As his martial arts reputation solidified, opportunities began to emerge beyond the tournament circuit. This was the bridge into acting, not as a sudden shift, but as a natural extension of his skill set. When Norris entered the world of film, he did so with a unique advantage. Unlike many action actors, he did not need to learn how to move convincingly. He already knew how. His martial arts background gave him an authenticity that translated directly to the screen. In films like Missing in Action and The Delta Force, Norris brought a level of realism that set him apart. His movements were not exaggerated. They were precise, controlled, purposeful. Every strike, every stance, every shift in position carried the imprint of real training, and audiences noticed. There was a distinct difference in how he appeared compared to others in the genre. While many performers relied on dramatic choreography, Norris relied on efficiency. That efficiency made his movements feel faster, more direct, and more grounded. Over time, this image expanded beyond film. Stories began to circulate. Some were serious, some were exaggerated, some were playful. And eventually, those stories evolved into something much larger, a cultural phenomenon. His name became associated with strength, resilience, and almost impossible capability. But beneath the humor and the myths, there remained a consistent truth. Years of training, years of repetition, years of refining movement until unnecessary motion was removed. This is where modern understanding of human performance helps put things into perspective. In physical disciplines, what often appears as extreme speed is the result of efficiency. Movements that are compact, direct, and well-timed reduce the time it takes to execute an action. Combined with strong anticipation, the ability to read an opponent and act before they fully commit, this creates a situation where the action feels instantaneous to the observer. What is actually happening is far more structured. The body is generating force from the ground, transferring it through coordinated muscle groups, and delivering it through a controlled path. At the same time, the mind is minimizing delay, reducing hesitation, and eliminating unnecessary decision-making. The result is movement that looks simple but is built on layers of refinement. And Norris mastered that process, making him one of the greatest of all time. But that's not all about Norris. What is coming next changes everything about how fast he was, what the numbers leave behind, and why his speed still matters. Chuck Norris died on March 19, 2026.
Martial arts and acting legend Chuck Norris has died. His family posting the news online earlier today. Norris redefined the role of the modern tough guy and action hero.
He was 86 years old, and 9 days before he died, he posted a video to social media of himself sparring with a training partner. He was throwing kicks, he was moving, he was, by every available evidence, still operating as a martial artist at an age when most people cannot perform the movements that produce the speeds his peak-era technique generated. The AI analysis of his speed is significant, not because it proves something that needed proving. Everyone who ever trained with him, competed against him, or watched him move at his peak already knew that his physical capabilities were exceptional. What science does is give the observation a language that extends beyond impression. It places what his opponents felt, the shock, the inability to see the strike before it landed, the sense of facing something that operated at a different speed than normal competitive martial arts, into a framework of peer-reviewed measurement that makes it communicable across time and context. There is also something specific the biomechanical analysis confirms about his longevity. The reason Norris was still sparring at 86 is not a mystery to sports scientists. Research consistently shows that the neurological components of martial arts speed, the efficiency of motor sequence firing, the precision of hip rotation mechanics, the automaticity of the chamber degrade significantly more slowly than raw muscular power. A fighter who has built speed through mechanical precision rather than brute force retains more of that capacity across decades than a fighter whose speed depended primarily on muscle mass and explosive power. Norris built his technique on precision. He maintained it through constant practice. And the result was a man who was still demonstrating martial arts movement at the age of 86 because the foundation of that movement was neurological efficiency, not youth. The internet meme that spent 20 years claiming Chuck Norris was not human was, in the specific and documented sense that biomechanics reveals, pointing at something real. Not the supernatural version, the physical one. He was not human in the sense that most people operate within the standard distribution of human physical capability. He was human in the sense that his extraordinary physical output was the product of human discipline applied consistently over an extraordinary period of time. Chuck Norris enjoyed 6 decades of daily training, 183 competitive victories, the highest foot velocities the sport could measure, and a Bruce Lee who changed his entire fighting philosophy because of what he saw in a backyard in Culver City. The AI did not discover something new about Chuck Norris. What it did was confirm, in the precise language of biomechanics and motion capture, what everyone who ever stood across a ring from him already knew: that the man moved at a speed that most people, even watching it happen in real time, could not fully process. Science finally has the vocabulary. The man it describes is gone, but the numbers are permanent. And there is one final thing the biomechanical analysis confirms that the memes never quite captured. The Chuck Norris facts were built on the premise that his abilities were impossible, that a roundhouse kick could travel around the world and hit the same person twice, that he counted to infinity, that he could divide by 0. The humor worked because it took something real, the observable fact that he operated at a physical level beyond what people could easily explain, and pushed it into absurdity. But the science reveals something subtler and in some ways more remarkable than any absurdist joke. He was not impossible. He was possible. He was achievable in principle by any human body. The speed was real. The mechanics were learnable. The discipline was replicable. He was not a supernatural phenomenon. He was the furthest possible point on the human end of the human spectrum. And somehow knowing that the numbers are real and the physics are documentable makes him not smaller, but considerably, measurably, permanently larger. What do you think? Does knowing the science behind Chuck Norris's speed change how you see what he achieved, and does it make the legend bigger or smaller? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more, and click the next video on your screen. You will not want to miss it.